than us today. All right, so let's call to order. Roll call, please.
Sand City,
Here.
County of Monterey, Seaside,
Here.
Veranda,
Here.
Delray Oaks,
Here.
Salinas,
Here.
Pacific Grove,
Here.
Castroville,
Here.
Monterey,
Here.
Marina Coast.
Here. The next agenda item is Pledge of Allegiance, and if I could ask our Mayor of Salinas to lead us. Actually, Seaside. All right, let me get this right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Mayor Oglesby.
Thank you.
We get to agenda item 4, which is additions to the agenda. Staff, are there any additions to the agenda?
No additions.
Directors, any additions to the agenda? All right, seeing none, we move on to agenda item 5, approval of the agenda. I'll entertain a motion.
Move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment on the motion? And if you're out there in Zoom land, don't forget to raise your raise hand function. All right, seeing none, bring it back for a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Please show unanimous. Thank you very much. We move on to public comments. Agenda item 6. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda may do so now for not more than 3 minutes. Comments on any other matter listed on the agenda are welcome at the time the matter is being considered by the board. Anyone in the room wishing to make public comment? Seeing none. Anyone out on Zoom? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the consent agenda. Are there any directors who wish to pull any items? Any member of the public wishing to pull any items? All right, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move approve consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. We have a motion and a second. Anyone from the public wishing to comment on the motion? All right, seeing none, voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Once again, please show unanimous. Thank you very much. We get to committee reports, budget and personnel. Anyone wish to receive the draft minutes?
Move.
Is there a second? Thank you very much. Any comment from the public on the motion? Seeing none in the room, none on Zoom, on a voice vote, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstentions? Once again, unanimous. Thank you very much. Recycled Water Committee. Entertain a motion to receive the draft minutes.
For me.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any comment from the board? Go out to the public. Any comment from the public? Seeing none, we'll bring it back for a voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Any abstentions? Unanimous again. All right, we move on to the action items. Agenda item 9A. Mr. Shuto.
Thank you, Tom. Actually, Mike and Rachel will be tag teaming on this item just to provide an update of where we're at with re-implementing the bi-monthly billing.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, Chair. So we included a staff report. I think that everybody should have read. Our staff, our team's been really busy putting things back in place. And so, we have a kind of a long list of items that we had to re-implement, such as, making sure the contract vendor that provides the bi-monthly billing service was on board. Had to re-establish our community pay stations. We had to go out for more printing. These are just some of the items that weren't really budgeted for in our fiscal year when we approved the budget in early June. And so, you can kind of see that list there of just the costs for re-implementing the bi-monthly billing of around $630,000. We will note that we were budgeting some of the costs for the customer notification to kind of remind them that we were going to go to the tax roll. So that was planned, but most of those other, costs were not planned for related to the budget. And so as you can tell from the expenses, there's some other fallouts from this in regards to the billing software. And I know that Frank may have some thoughts on that. Some website redesign. We were already in the process of redesigning our website to remove the customer billing information from the website redesign. So we'll have to re-implement that. We were going to see some more revenue from field inspections, and so that won't occur. One of the other items is obviously we were trying to move away from the lien process, but now we're back to bi-monthly billing. That will be implemented. And then some of the other items that were affected as well was the customer assistance program. We went into depth on the ad hoc about this, but we revamped the customer assistance program. We enrolled over 900 people into this program, and if it was going to go to the tax billing, it was just kind of a minor adjustment to the annual rate report, and it was a one-time thing, and that was going to happen. Well, now that we have those 904 people on board, we're going to have to go back in and manually touch that bill 2 different times in 2 different billing cycles. So that's obviously a more increase in staff time to do that. And then what was the other one? I'm going to let Frank talk about the billing process because it's more complex than just, hey, we have to get a new billing process. So.
Yeah. So, most of the impacts I think are written on a small little paragraph in there. But, we're currently replacing or working on replacing our main financial HR and utility billing software due to the manufacturer not supporting it anymore. Originally, with the thought of going to the tax rolls, we did not have to include a utility billing portion of that. So I think it mentions the estimated financial cost, which is about $213,000, I believe, for the first year, and then about $90,000 per year after that. And then one of the big issues that really brought it, or that we really have to concern ourselves with, is the timeline. We're kind of in a crunch with when the vendor is going to stop supporting our current system. And adding the UB portion is potentially going to add a significant amount of time onto that. So we're in danger of potentially not having supported software when we're still having to bill with that software. That's something that we're working on, and staff is diligently working with me to get the RFP updated and prepared for that. And those are the really the biggest issues. Obviously, it does increase the complexity by having to have the UB software. So it potentially limits some of the vendors that we can reach out to. And that's pretty much the UB portion in a nutshell.
Just couple other items. When I was talking about the original customer assistance program that was for residential homes, people that were needing assistance. The other part that we were, planning to do, we went to the tax roll, was implement phase 2 of the customer assistance program. That was going to be a program designated for renters, but due to the staff time to re-implement phase 1, phase 2 will not be moving forward. And then on the public trust, we talked with customer service. Majority of people that have called in have made comments have been indifferent about whether we have to go back to bi-monthly billing or not. Obviously, we've gotten people that were for the change for the tax rolls. We've had calls that were against the move to the tax rolls. And then obviously we've gotten inquiries as to what happened. Why did this happen? Why did it not happen? Things of that nature. So we just wanted to bring this item to the board to let them know that, the total impact, so to speak, is roughly a little over $1 million. And that does not include any staff time that was, incurred to get things to the point for the board vote, or the staff time to re-implement the billing. So Paul, do you have any other comments?
The only thing is, so we'll be pulling these expenditures from the contingency within
Yes,
this budget, the 24-25 budget that we approved earlier, just to cover these. I just wanted the board to understand that.
And then just one other thing to add, kind of a letter will be going out to all customers signed by the general manager and the chair of the board, alerting customers to the fact that we will be re-implementing bi-monthly billing. It apologizes for the sudden pivot, and then provides contact information should they want to seek more info, and it will go out in English and in Spanish via first class mail.
Okay, thank you. Directors, questions, comments? This is not an action item, but if you have questions or comments. Vice Chair Williamson.
How much exactly are we taking out of contingency, or what parts of the cost are covered by the contingency?
Do you guys have that tallied up?
Roughly 600,000 for non-budgeted expenditures. And then there are
The
subsequent
219 also.
impacts. Yeah, exactly. Subsequent impacts from not implementing. So the 219 in increased expenditures related to bi-monthly billing, and then also that 100,000 in lost revenue. So when you're looking at total impact, it's the larger number, but in terms of specifically making a transfer, for example, from contingency, you're going to be in about that $700,000 range.
$800,000 we'll hit the contingency on.
How much is in our contingency?
You know that off the top of your head, Peter, or no?
I don't know.
We will find that out and send it to you.
Okay.
We'll send it to the entire board.
And then just a last question here, somewhat rhetorical, but it could also be deserving of a response. We're going to be looking at doing rate increase study again next year. What kind of potential impact does this have on our need to increase rates and trying to balance the need to keep rates low for our customers? Like how what kind of impact does this potentially have on that? Or, I mean, looking at it from another perspective too, like our need to balance our infrastructure, our capital projects.
So we need to get a little more into the details to fully answer your question, but generally speaking, the budget on the wastewater side's ballpark $56 million a year. So the fact that we're incurring an extra $1 million from a percentage standpoint isn't huge. It's going to add to it, certainly. Something that Peter and I will need to go over also is the impact to our bond rating, because certainly having the invoicing and the billing on the tax roll is a consistent revenue stream. And generally speaking, the rating agencies look more favorably upon that versus our own billing. So there can be a difference in bond rating. Hopefully we're not on the cusp and it doesn't affect us and therefore affect our interest rates. But there's a number of variables to look at. In general, 2%. A 2% increase more than we would have anticipated, that $1 million over the $56 million budget.
So
That was not anticipated in our 10-year budget estimates.
So it sounds like our ratepayers are going to be paying more due to this decision than potentially would have created cost savings for some. I appreciate it. And I just want to, for a final time, just give a lot of appreciation for staff for the back and forth on this, but also the continual work towards making sure that we course correct and make sure that we get the bills to our customers and continue the agency functioning in a forward working way. So thank you.
Other directors, Director Rocha.
Thank you. Can you go a little bit into Vice Chair Williamson's comments about it being increased costs to ratepayers? Can you explain that a little bit to me more? I didn't really grasp that.
Yeah, and please understand that 2% was a huge ballpark estimate on my part. So obviously our rates need to cover our full budget, including capital expenditures as O&M, salaries, and benefits. When we see any increase in any of those pies, it is covered by our ratepayers. So where we were looking to decrease the amount of O&M in our billing, we have now increased it a little bit. In our 10-year budget, we had anticipated no expenditures or the minimal expenditures for invoicing. So now we're going to have to put that back into the budget, which would then increase the revenue requirement to meet our overall budget.
And had the board not made the decision to pursue going to the property tax rolls, that would have already been factored into your 10-year projection, correct?
Had the board not
Made the decision to pursue going to.
back in February
No, back
or
in October.
October?
Yeah,
Yeah, that would have been in there.
okay. So I appreciate the conversation. And what I'll share is, I think that we should be careful about comments like that because the rates would have reflected the cost had the board never chose to go down that route in October. I recognize that us not pursuing the direction that the board initiated in October results in the need for us to reflect the original and anticipated cost before. I recognize that part. But that was a cost savings that was projected based on a decision that had to be made by the board, not really anything outside of that. And so I just wanted to clarify that. That being said, this discussion and this decision is one that is difficult for someone like myself that understands the role I play as a representative for the city of Salinas, but also a board member for this agency. And so while I've had nothing but positive comments from the constituents I represent about the decision, I still recognize the impact it had on the and that's what I take it seriously. I want to communicate that to the board, that I'm not indifferent to the reality that has come from that, while still recognizing the responsibility that I have to the constituents that I serve and to the council that appointed me. And so, but I appreciate the work that everyone played in this. It's one of those things to where you have to balance that. And I think moving forward, there's a lot to be learned from this as to when to put the votes at what time and, you know, on the board member side, when to speak up on things sooner than, you know, probably later. And so certainly learning experience altogether, but I recognize the situation that's come from it afterwards while still acknowledging the role that I play as a council member for the city of Salinas and the commitment that I should have for my constituents.
Thank you, Director Rocha. Other directors? Director Urbino and then Director Stefani.
So I have a question with the billing software.
Yes.
So we're back with the original vendor, correct?
Yes,
And we had to re-up our contract.
That is
Did
correct.
we
That-
let it expire? Or,
no, we were, I think we were under contract through July. We've used this company for a long time. So I think they gave us back. I don't remember if it was our specific same cost, roundabout the same cost to re-up it for this next year. Yes.
okay, and then the billing software, which you're gonna have utility billing included in it, that won't start for a couple of years, 1 year, 2 years?
We're, like I said, we're working on the RFP. We're hoping to get that out within the next month or two and have that project officially started in January. But it has a certain linear type of flow to it. So financials has to go first before we can do any HR piece or utility billing piece.
And Frank, do you know when does the Eden software, that's our,
I think
billing
the
vendor.
official date is March 2027. I can double check that
When it's no longer supported?
when it's no longer supported.
Oh, okay. I thought it was end 26, but
It was, everyone talks about it being end of 2026, but I think they bumped it out a few months into 2027.
The contract re-up though is 12 months? Is that?
Yeah, so that's the vendor who creates the bills for us, prints them, sends them out, and has the web payment portal, which is different than our utility billing software.
Gotcha.
The utility billing software calculates the bills and sends the data to, is it AFTS?
yes.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Director Stefani.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. I've been on the board a long time and I've been on a lot of boards. And I've always worked for cost effectiveness, cost efficiencies, and doing the best for the ratepayers. And representing Castroville, severely disadvantaged community, I was looking forward to some impact on their rates by going to the tax rolls. Our community was all for it.
And I'd be ready to go vote for it again next year if we're ready to move in that direction. Because it's the most cost-effective and efficient thing to do for our ratepayers. Right now, we're adding up all these dollars and you're gonna see it's gonna go on their bill. It's not gonna go on our bill. It's not gonna come off of our pay. It's gonna go on their bill. So let's work for the best cost effectiveness for our ratepayers. And I'm ready to vote that project in. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Director Stefani. Other comments, questions? Director Coletti.
Thank you. Well, to expand on Ron's point and what was mentioned by the general manager, there are these costs that are mentioned in this agenda report. And they're sizable, but there's also the costs of financing if we have to go out to the bond market. And I've seen presentations where this agency's on the hook for several $100 million in projects. Well, that's got to get financed somehow. And I can tell you that people who are willing to finance want to see a stable revenue stream. And the differential between the delinquency rates by what we're doing currently with the current billing and what the delinquency rates would be if it were on the tax roll, I think is a strong argument for putting the bills on the tax roll because we have to finance the debt and the debt is going to come at better terms and better rates if they see a stable revenue source with a lower delinquency rate. And that's my comments.
All right. Thank you, Director Coletti. And yes, Vice Chair Williamson again.
Quick follow-up. If the board were to consider going back to the tax rolls again at some point in the future, what do the numbers look like in regards to what's being presented today? Some of it seems like it's a sunk cost, but some of it seems opportunity loss. So I guess maybe trying to differentiate those a little bit and looking at where the opportunity is to shore up some of the loss that we're seeing in regards to the pivot, if we will.
So yeah, some of them are absolutely sunk costs. I mean, all the work we did for the last year and a half for outreach and mailings and all that, that's a sunk cost. That's gone. Some of the stuff that Frank brought up, certainly if we were to change it again next year, we would realize those savings as people have identified. In terms of the direct split, I don't know that, and we can certainly look into it. But that is, I think I certainly understand that the public's input. The reason we moved forward with this was purely efficiencies, getting away from liens, and trying to be the most efficient government entity that we possibly can be. So we can tally those for you, but I don't have them off the cuff. But you're absolutely right. There's some split between sunk costs and ongoing moving forward.
If we do end up coming back to this topic, I think it would be helpful to just kind of see that maybe as part of the staff report, just to kind of look at the numbers.
The differences.
Mhm.
Okay.
And then just one final point. I think we can look in the past at October or February. The board made choices at those times. And the fact of the matter is that the vote that we made last month was based off of the decisions that the prior board has made, and staff has done nothing but follow the direction that the board has provided to staff. So I think it's important when we make decisions that we look at all the elements and not just make assumptions on shoulda, coulda, wouldas. Because the fact of the matter is that the agency's hurting, and it's hurting financially, but also the reputation of all of our ratepayers and the general public around trying to keep up with what's going on. When I think there was already enough issues going on with M1W in our relationship with the public, and I think this just kind of further puts us in the hole. So it's a really messy situation, and I appreciate staff working with the chair on trying to draft the letter together and getting that out to our ratepayers so that we can try to right the ship here a little bit. So thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
Yes.
Director Carbone.
Thank you, Chair. So I know that there was discussions previously that, when we were going through this, so I hope that next year, if we bring this back, maybe we look at some of those questions. that come before the board and which were there was the opt-out that, of course, there was also the HOAs who came forward and you know, discussed the possibility of double charging. So just want to put it out there that, you know, that we look at, we have some past experience with what we heard from the public and that maybe, you know, that we keep that just in mind for if we go with this again, that you're probably going to hear more of the same probably comments. So just, you know, and I know don't want to go too far, steer too far off of the conversation because I know legal counsel, I don't know if I'm getting out of my lane by talking about future things, but anyways, that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Carbone.
Director Roach. Thank you. I appreciate hearing from all of my colleagues on your perspectives on it. I disagree on whether or not this would have benefited disadvantaged communities. I've shared my opinion extensively. I don't believe anything that I said was based on shoulda, coulda, woulda. I think I was very articulate in identifying the issues that were impacting my community. Residents from my city, which by the way, I didn't organize anyone to come to this meeting. The residents that came to the meeting were based on the information they got, and they were here on their own interest to be here. I totally appreciate the sentiments made by Vice Chair Williamson about the need to have improved relationships with the public, improved image of Monterey Wind Water. I absolutely agree. And I would just say, I think that in an effort to build on that, to try and pursue this again after the vote we just had would further damage those relationships and that reputation. This item was opposed by the prior representative from the city of Salinas to this board. Whether if I'm taken off of this board or not, I expect it to be continued to be opposed by whoever represents the city of Salinas, just based off of the feedback we got from our constituents and the discussion we've had in Salinas. So factor that into your hypothesis on how to pursue this moving forward. And the way I see it is a vote was taken. It's important to move on and respect the process that played out and the vote that happened. I think to rehash it all over again and go through another vote wouldn't do anyone any favors. But I do absolutely acknowledge the cost that came from that financially, and that I'm not ignoring that. But just in terms of building relationships, I would say, like, let's hear each other out on where we're coming from our concerns and not be so quick to delegitimize those concerns. Because that's not going to contribute to having better working relationships. And if the city of Salinas and the constituents of the city of Salinas are acknowledging these concerns, to tell us that's just not true, it is not conducive to working relationships. So hear me out, I'll hear you out, and let's go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rocha. So I do have a couple of comments. Despite a split vote on this issue back in last month in June, seems like it was longer ago than that, doesn't it? I think we can agree on a couple of things. Number one is this entire issue was and is complex. And we all had to work hard to try and understand it. Staff had to work hard to try and understand it, in particular to suss out all the little different funky billing situations that exist there, where there are some customers of ours who don't even get a property tax bill because they don't pay property taxes because they're the federal government. So I think we can agree it was a complex issue. I think we can agree that our original intention was to try and save our customers about $400,000 a year. Now, when I say save our customers, possibly we could have gone to the tax rolls and not charged a rate going forward to our customers as much as we're going to have to now. If you look at $400,000 a year in savings, and we have approximately, and I'm going to do a little math here in my head, so if I make a mistake, please correct me. We got about 60,000 customer accounts that pay bi-monthly. So divide 60,000 into 400,000 and you get a number somewhere between $6 and $7 a year, which translates into about $1 a month savings on bi-monthly bills. That's what we were hoping for, and either to be able to not raise rates by that dollar, or maybe we stick with the rates that our rate engineers recommended to us, and we would have $400,000 to put into capital improvement and renewing old infrastructure. I don't know which way the board would have gone had we gone to the tax rules, but we didn't. So going forward, I'm pretty sure we can all agree that we are, both staff and board members, going to look for ways associated with our billing processes that might save some money going forward. Money that could either not come out of rates in future rate increases, or money that would come out of rates but then could go to improving infrastructure. And then one final question for staff, not been directly asked, but could you comment on any sort of, I mean, we've measured the consequences of our decision mostly with the dollar amounts, but are there any, and I know it's harder, but are there any intangibles that staff can comment on that we should pay attention to as a board? Intangible consequences of this.
Certainly, I think so. And I'm gonna just name a couple. I prefer that Rachel, Mike, and Frank, from looking at the universe of possibilities, all of a sudden you've narrowed it. That's an intangible to a certain extent. Yeah, there's a number of them. I mean, I think the staff report talks about public trust. We've been talking about this for 2 years. This isn't something recent. We've been doing outreach for 2 years, and then to pivot on it, there is sort of that backlash that I hope the board understands. It's fine. We're going to send a letter out, and we're going to continue that outreach and try to reverse it. So we're trying to address it. The other thing is the effect on staff. That I certainly appreciate the comments by the board of everything we've done and acknowledging it. To hear some people come in or on the phone and state things about what we're doing or not doing, it affects staff. And many times, if we pause, those comments are not entirely factual or could be somewhat uninformed if we can provide additional information. But when I look at, and I'm just going to point to Rachel and Mike, because they're the faces before us, but also our customer service department that have been answering phones for the last 6 months or year and addressing this. So it's taxing on staff, certainly. So public trust, staff, as Frank mentioned, we have this universe of options for an ERP system, which is like the lifeblood of our business. Well, now we have to narrow those options. Could we quantify it? Possibly, but it's intangible to a certain extent. Rachel, Mike, others respond to Tom's questions?
Yeah, I can give another example. So one call we received was from a property management company who, given they had received numerous notifications that we were implementing this change, they changed hundreds of leases. It took over a week's worth of time, so about, they estimated 40 hours. So all of those tenants have new leases that account for rent, sewer within their rent or sewer being paid on the property tax of the property owner. So now it's up to that property management company to either change all the leases back and decrease the rent, keep it where it is, or in some cases, some property management companies are now asking us to use the care of feature and bill different parties. So that would be another kind of intangible impact. But in general, it was that people were preparing for this change. We've also heard from HOAs who were preparing for this change and who are now trying to get a better grasp on their billing and how they're going to budget in the coming year for their HOA dues. And I just want to echo Paul's comment. While Paul and Mike and I sit up here and have talked about this, this change and worked the last 18 months with you on this project, our customer service team is behind the phones and talking with customers at the window daily. And they have put in numerous hours trying to support the customer through this change and also in the re-implementing of the billing process. So typically it takes us about 2 to 3 months to prep our database. So we have our database or our billing software where we maintain the customer data, the rates, as Frank was kind of saying, it calculates the billing. And usually each fiscal year, it takes us about 2 to 3 months to prep that database for billing. So from the time we needed to bill, from the time the board made the decision in June to the time we needed to bill July 1st, the team had about 5 days to do what normally takes 2 to 3 months. And so they worked very diligently and reprioritized to ensure that we could re-implement bi-monthly billing with limited hiccups. So just want to reemphasize that while we've been the faces on this, a shout out goes to the full team, especially customer service and Lindsay and her staff who have helped make this happen. And so while 900 people are in the customer assistance program, we actually received more like 1,200 applications. And so they processed all of those in a crunched timeline to ensure we could meet that tax roll deadline. And now they're going to be doing that manual entry for the next 4 months, kind of making sure that all those credits get applied via bi-monthly billing.
Any others, Paul? All
Not that
right.
I can think of at this point, but
Okay.
thank you for that question.
Yeah, absolutely. And in discussing this with one of my colleagues who is within our service area, he said, well, that just proves it. I said, what do you mean? That proves what? He said, democracy. It's the worst form of government, except for all the others. So going forward, we do apologize to the public. We will be sending a letter out informing them about the change, where that letter is not going into a lot of details about how or why it happened. And we probably need to all be cognizant of the importance of trust in our agency because of what we do. We're a good deal different from cities, which have all sorts of things. And if you don't build that city park in a timely manner, some of your neighborhoods are inconvenienced a little bit. If we don't treat this wastewater appropriately, people die. I think the consequences are somewhat different, and our mission is very focused and very different. And we need the public's trust in our mission. So whatever we can do as individual directors, and I know staff works hard every day in ensuring that the public trusts that what we do is appropriate, keeping them safe, and providing recycled waters to our recycled water customers, which is pretty important also. So thank you very much, staff. We have to give the public an opportunity to comment on this if there are no other director comments. So we'll go out to the public. Anyone in the room wishing to comment? All right, seeing none, we'll go out to Zoom. Raise your Zoom hand if you wish to comment. All right, and seeing none, that was a report. Good discussion. Thank you very much. And we will move on to agenda item 9B. Mr. Sciutto.
Thank you, Tom. I think Mike's going to handle this one as well. I'll provide color as necessary.
Practicing for the Olympics, eh?
Yes.
So in late June, City of Salinas reached out to Monterey One Water to assist with potentially taking additional water from the industrial treatment facility into our Pond 3 pump station to help alleviate some regulatory concerns from the city of keeping their operational freeboard. And based on some of the input we got from the city staff, we're going to pull up the presentation there. There you go. The request was that, like I said, they take it, we take it, and our understanding at the time was the city was going to pay for the primary and secondary treatment of that water to come into our system. If it would go through primary and secondary treatment and then out the ocean outfall, the city of Salinas would pay for that treatment. Or if somebody else needed to use that water, the city thought that the user should pay for the treatment costs plus their treatment costs. And so that was the request. And so given the sensitivity at the time, we thought we needed to bring that to the Recycled Water Committee. And so can we go to the next slide there, Chai? And so, like I mentioned, the operational freeboard need to be at 2 feet.
Does everyone understand what that means, the operational freeboard? You might want to explain that.
So they have to keep 2 feet from the top of the pond where the water level is. And if they, the pond levels raise up, then they lose that operational freeboard. And so they were requesting us to help them keep their operational freeboard intact while they had higher flows. And so one of the reasons they had some higher flows was due to the flooding in the fall of 2023. It kind of helped reduce the percolation ability of those ponds at the time. And so that was the request of why they wanted us to come and assist them. And that's why we came to the board for some additional input. So in between, the Recycled Water Committee was on the 18th. The city received a letter from the Regional Water Quality Control Board, and they said that they could use some temporary items to help them. And it's through what they call rapid infiltration basins through August the 2nd, so through this next Friday. And they also were required to reduce the flow limit that they receive in that facility. Next slide, please. And so we've done this in the past. And so this isn't foreign to Monterey One Water. We assisted the city in February, March, and April this year with these diversion costs, in which they basically consist of two components: is the actual treatment cost to treat it, but also some fixed costs and some variable costs that we included. And the fixed cost is, what it costs to have that facility there. The variable cost was going to be, operational electricity to power that up. And then obviously the treatment cost for primary and secondary treatment. And we utilize the interruptible rate for that.
And I would point out, Mike, that so we've helped the city out 3 times in reference to taking water from their ponds, as Mike mentioned, this year, February through April, but also in 2023 with all the storms that we had, they had some breaching of their levees. So we took water in January and February to help them out as well.
And I was just going to clarify. And so what makes this request different is that it's coming during the summer time, when the potential for a recycled water buyer is there, or may be there. Sorry.
Next slide, please, Trey. So, well, you might think, well, what's so different about this? And so, we put up a kind of a table here to kind of explain how some of these costs are borne upon our customers, and then also from the people that are taking the water. So you can see there, municipal wastewater, our customers pay for primary and secondary treatment. So in order that we can safely discharge that into the environment, usually be the ocean outfall. But then if there's recycled water going to occur, then you can see Marina Coast or the growers or Pure Water Monterey would pay for those water recycling costs. The same is true if you talk about reclamation ditch. If Pure Water Monterey needs the water from the rec ditch or Blanco drain, then we pay for primary and secondary treatment as well as the recycling cost. The direct diversion from the ag processors based on the agreement that we have with the Water Resource Agency, then they would be paying the primary and secondary costs plus the water recycling costs. Stormwater from Pacific Grove, this was dating back into the early 2000s. The city pays for that primary and secondary treatment. And if that water is available, then CSIP or Pure Water Monterey will utilize that. We're working with the city of Monterey. They understand that there are projects in design, and water recycling would be whatever entity needs it at that time. And then the Salinas Industrial Water, that first line is blank because this is why we're here tonight. And then the second thing would be industrial water. CSIP has that first right. You got that?
Well, I believe you currently have an agreement relative to the industrial wastewater where Salinas pays for it. It's the 2015 agreement.
Yes.
Which is taken at the shunt. So they do under that agreement, which still exists and has a term up through, I have to ask Allison, 40 years or something. Yeah, 30 years. They pay under that agreement.
And just, Jim mentioned the shunt. So there's 2 ways to get water from the Salinas ponds. One is from the direct diversion or shunt, sort of by the pump station, comes right to the pump station, does not go through their ponds for their treatment. Second way is through the Pond 3 pump station, which does go into their facilities and we pump it to us. So there's 2 ways to get water to us. But I think this is a nice table to understand who contributes, who pays, and then who uses.
Next slide. So just kind of a quick timeline of just how this all kind of came to be. So we got the request on the 27th. You know, we immediately set up a meeting between ourselves, City of Salinas, and the Water Resource Agency to go through the request. We exchanged numerous emails between the Monterey One Water and the City of Salinas. Brought the item to the Recycled Water Committee on the 18th. They recommended it go to the full board. And you can kind of see here some of the other items that they have with the board meeting tonight, and then the ability to use the rapid infiltration basins and when they're supposed to cease the operation. So the last thing is the staff recommendation. So as requested from the City of Salinas is that they would like us to allow them to discharge water from the industrial wastewater treatment facility to Monterey One Water via the Pond 3 pump station. And then from there, the water will be treated to the secondary level and discharged to the ocean, in which the city would pay for the fixed cost and the treatment cost on a volumetric basis. And then we're open to have any questions at this time.
And actually, Jim, can you talk to, because we talked about it in reference to just the city's request and the board discussion. There are water code provisions here, and then certainly Jim has brought up some of the existing agreements we have and how they may or may not interplay with this request. But if you could address just the water code part, that'd be great.
You don't want me to address the others?
Well, you can. It's just we do want to get out of here before midnight.
I'll try to be brief, but so under the water code, as the operator of the treatment plant, absent an agreement with some other party, we own the water rights to that treated water. So if someone supplies water and we treat it, it's our water. We pick and choose what we would do with that water. And so I'd be concerned about putting constraints on our ability to do that when we're being asked to take water and treat it. The other thing I would just add briefly is that pursuant to the water recycling agreement, you may recall Water Resource Agency exercised its rights when we didn't satisfy the conditions precedent. And under the conditions, as they've elected it, we have to prepare a new agreement. But under those circumstances, they have the first right to the industrial wastewater. We would have the right to use it if they don't use it, so there's that piece of this. And
if I can just address that real fast, we have in discussions with Ara, their general manager at Water Resources Agency, with the river running and Salinas River Diversion Facility being operational, they don't need the water. So what we talked about is in maybe it's 30-day increments, they would refuse going, we don't need it, Monterey One, you can use it if need be. We would revisit that every 30 days for the term that Salinas is requesting that we take that water. So that was a verbal, of course, and that was noted on, I think, one of the slides Mike had. Sorry, go ahead. Did you have something else or no?
no, that's all I had.
Okay.
Unless anybody has any questions on the water rights issues.
We'll start with our county supervisor.
Thank you. Just curious on the estimated quantities were involved, and we're talking about, numbers and costs and everything, and little bit of filling in there. I understand it's probably pretty loose numbers we're talking about, but would be helpful in knowing that.
Did you ever get those quantities, Mike? I mean, I assume it's somewhere in the 3 million range or more.
A day?
Yeah.
So
Actually, to lower it's going to be greater than that, isn't it?
yeah, so when we did this in February, we just kind of had a loose parameter of around 1.5 million gallons a day, which is what they were taking in. 1.5 million, yes, sir. And so, they're probably taking in around 3 million gallons a day. So if you wanted to alleviate just the existing inflow and kind of help provide some relief, you could go probably up to 5 or 6 million gallons a day to help bring that down in a quick timeline.
That all? Director Church?
There's the cost and the charges that we would have to treat that kind of quantity to the city of Salinas would be how much?
So,
But
that.
the
go
6 million gallons a day is about 18.5 acre feet.
Yeah.
So what's the interruptible rate on that plus the fixed?
Well, there's a caveat to the interruptible rate that we'll be discussing next month, and that we will probably be raising that under the agreement in March. It was a lot lower than what is anticipated moving into the
currently?
future. Well, currently, if we goes from the one we used in February is 136 acre feet, but that won't be the same rate that will be charged in August if we decide to move forward.
So we're looking like $2,500 a day on under the current rate.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? We had, go ahead, Director Stefani.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just want to hear about the $10 million grant. Didn't we get a $10 million grant for the city of Salinas to build Pond 3? And so how does that all play into this?
So you want the historical perspective there, Mr. Stefani?
Well, if it doesn't have anything to do with it, no, but
But
It's-
in reference to, so yeah, the reason for the grant was to recycle water. That was the purpose for the grant.
Right.
And thank God Allison's here because she can provide additional detail if necessary. So we do have to meet the grant conditions, which is to recycle water into the Seaside Basin using Pond 3 pump station. It was primarily for the stormwater fraction that's coming into the ponds from South Salinas that we would then pump to our plant and use for Pure Water Monterey. As Jim alluded to, the provision of industrial wash water coming in, if Water Resources Agency doesn't use it, we would be allowed to use it. That would also be part of that. But in reference to this, I don't think there's a direct nexus to the grant conditions unless Allison, can you provide any detail or tell me I'm incorrect on that?
So the grant, the $10 million grant that you referenced was for stormwater diversion and reuse, essentially. And so the benefits of the Pond 3 pump station that we're talking about today as being utilized potentially is that we have the ability to move stormwater from the urban areas of the city of Salinas into the industrial wastewater treatment facility and then recover that stormwater to our treatment plant and reuse that water with Pure Water Monterey. In this case, we're talking about the industrial wastewater essentially because last winter we did not divert substantial amounts of stormwater. The $10 million grant actually covered parts of the Blanco Drain and Reclamation Ditch project. So we're meeting the terms of the grant agreement by using Blanco Drain this summer. I hope that helps. If you have other questions, let me know.
just one more point.
Go ahead.
I'm on the Salinas Valley Basin GSA. Tom's on the Marina Coast GSA. I think both of those GSAs would be interested on where this water's going. Because if it's going out to the ocean, that's kind of
Little
defeats our
counterproductive.
mission.
Yeah, a little counterproductive.
And that's all I got. Thank you.
Director Habino.
Mike, you were mentioning the regional board. Can you go over that again? I didn't really catch what you were saying.
So, obviously the city, so when we had the meeting on July 1st and we said, hey, we need to take this to our board, the city asked the regional board, is there an interim step we can do to help give us some relief? So they wrote to the regional board requesting relief using those rapid infiltration basins. And so regional board deliberated and sent them a letter on July 23rd saying, yes, you can use them, but there are some conditions that you need to follow in order to use them. First limited them to August the 2nd. They can only use it till then, from July 23rd to August 2nd. And then they have to ask their producers to stop sending water to them in that volume. And they reduced the whole permit of that facility down until the city can show that they can improve the, disposal of that water.
So we're taking steps to make a short-term agreement or a long-term agreement with the city concerning this?
They've been a little dormant. Is that the right term, Paul, that we can say? It's just from the flooding and,
Staff changes.
And river use this year. I mean, we haven't really met in probably since March, I would think.
But there has been substantial effort, or meetings at least, maybe not effort, meetings over the last 2 years to try to come to what we were hoping for was a long-term agreement between Water Resources Agency, City of Salinas, and ourselves on taking of the water. It then changed to maybe we do a short-term agreement just to get something going for when either Salinas needs to get rid of the water or Water Resources needs it, or we would like to use it. That has never gotten to completion. So we are stuck in this limbo, if you will, where the city has requested 3 times in the last year, can you please take water? And we do sort of one-off, one-page agreements on what they're going to pay. As Rachel pointed out, they have always been in the wintertime when there's not a need, so it just goes out to the ocean, which I agree with Ron. It's not what we want as a community. That's, in my opinion, I mean, that's just wasteful. Now we're in the middle of the growing season, and when pure water could certainly put more water into the ground. So it's a different circumstance.
And the part where CSIP or the county water resources, they have first right, and you said that's a verbal, or is that actually in writing?
That's in writing in the amended and restated water recycling agreement between us and the Water Resources Agency. So that's just a 2-party agreement. The verbal I referenced was when we were discussing this particular request of water coming from the industrial wash water coming to us. Being that there's river water, there's no need, CSIP doesn't have the need at this point for additional water.
Right.
They have all of our wastewater and they have river water. So they're good in terms of water needs. So the verbal we received from Ara, which he would turn into a written, is if we receive water from Salinas, we could use it.
Thank you.
But the we could use it, then if you look at the email from the city of Salinas is, if we use it, we pay for primary, secondary, and we pay Salinas for water. So that they were going to get rid of.
Have to get rid of.
I don't understand.
So,
Sorry, was I unclear?
let me get a clarification here. See if what I assert is correct. When you say we use it, what you're talking about is we would use it to inject in the Seaside Basin pure water Monterey.
Correct.
And so wouldn't that mean there'd be an expectation that Pure Water Monterey and Cal-Am pays if we were to agree to the proposed terms from the city, then Cal-Am would have to pay those costs because we wouldn't ask all of our ratepayers to pay those costs, would we?
Correct.
And-
But I will also say those additional costs are not in our pure water budget for 24-25.
Well, that's what I was.
So
just
then
gonna
it's always a
ask.
balancing.
So we can't really do it.
Well, once again, we could tap our contingency budget or if need be.
Okay. Hang on. So were you done, Director Urbino? Was your question completely answered?
I was just going to agree with Ron that, in this agreement, I think Sigma obviously has to be thought about and talked about, and in terms of sustainability of our basins.
Agreed.
All right. So I saw Director Roach's hand a moment ago, and then we'll go to Mayor Oglesby.
Yeah, just wanted to clarify, I could participate in this conversation, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
And also our Director of Public Works is online, if you'd like to get the City of Salinas's perspective on this as well. But as I understand, the requested terms is that if the city would want to get rid of the water and for it to go to outfall, then we would pay for the costs associating with the treatment of that, correct?
Mhm.
But if we're going to provide the water and another party is going to use the water, then the city is requesting that that treatment fee that we were going to pay be paid by the party that would be using the water.
Correct. And an additional payment to the city for the water.
So for me, what I'm trying to see, is there a way for us to find a middle here? Because the city would like for this to be fair. If we're going to be paying for treatment, for it to go to outfall, I mean, like, we'll pay for that. But if we're not going to use the water, and somebody else is going to use it, I mean, I understand we have to get rid of it, right?
Yeah.
can someone else pay that treatment fee, interruptible treatment fee? That's where we're coming from. I understand the other issue, an additional fee. So I'm coming from is where can we meet in the middle on that? That way it's fair to the city of Salinas in terms of the fees that we're paying. But you're saying there is no money in the budget for that discussion of the payment of the interruptible fee? If it were to be Pure Water Monterey, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, so Pure Water Monterey is, operated as a separate enterprise fund. So what we've anticipated in the development of our cost to Water Management District Cal-Am is primarily using excess wastewater, Blanco drain, reclamation ditch, et cetera. So this fraction, which probably wouldn't be huge, we'd have to look at what is the additional cost if we agree to this. And it would obviously be borne by the Pure Water Monterey Fund, not by everyone, all the ratepayers. Do we have enough in contingency to pay for that? And what do we want to? I mean, we need to meet our contractual obligations. And as long as we meet that,
One moment. Director Williamson, can you please show a little bit of respect for me? I'm sitting here at the table representing the city of Salinas. And the side comments, I'm taking a little bit of disrespect to that. I'm asking if you could please not do that. I would really appreciate it.
I'm good. I'm good. I'm not making any comments to you, so.
No, but you're making it about the question of the city of Salinas. I just want it to be a little disrespectful. And I'm asking you as a colleague if you could please refrain.
I'll refrain from my comments until
appreciate
the mic gets to me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
And I totally respect that part of it.
so we would have to look at, would we want to do that? I mean, we have a contractual obligation and that's all we're trying to do, whether it be to CSIP or to Pure Water Monterey. For the additional cost, do we want to pay the treatment costs and or money to Salinas for water you just want to get rid of? So we need to look at that from a business perspective.
By any chance, would it be okay to allow the public works director to share the perspective of the city?
Any objections to hearing from, please? Probably have to bring him in so he can unmute and speak. Go ahead.
I think there were I know Ian had a question too. Meryl.
Probably had to wait till public comment.
Board discussion first. All right. So we'll hold off and then we'll do that when we get to public. Sorry.
You wanted to go.
I guess my only point is in all of this, why would we do that? Like, I don't see the value in it. So, I guess what would be the value for the agency in putting ourselves in a position to bear a cost that the city of Salinas is contractually required to find a way of getting rid of it. So I guess I'm not understanding where the value is for the agency.
From a pure financial perspective, there's not a value to Monterey One Water, Pure Water Monterey, or the Water Resources Agency this particular year. There's water out there. It's truly, when Salinas has asked in the past, or anyone, we try to be helpful. We try to provide cooperative water solutions. We try to work with other entities. This one, I didn't feel comfortable making the call myself because of this very issue that you're all discussing. It doesn't make financial sense. Does it make resource sense? Yeah, it makes resource sense to try to use water versus just say, no, it has to go out the outfall.
Right. Okay.
Mayor Oglesby, sir.
Thank you. I'm trying to understand this myself. I thought the water code said that once it's in our system, it's ours.
Yep.
And so I'm sitting here listening to, I think we spent 20 minutes talking about something we did last month. So we talked about the bind that we're in with money. And so why would we have a resource that legally belongs to us and then just send it out to the oceans for free when other people can use it? Particularly, all of our basins, all of our agencies can use it. And I mean, I don't know if we sell it or not, or, just pump it somewhere, but I don't like it going out to the ocean. But I do think and know that if the water code says it belongs to us, then that's kind of like where it ends. Right. So there's no question there because I think it was pretty clear. They want us to, not, if, I guess at the end of the day, if it belongs to us, then they can, I don't understand how anyone can ask us to just let it go out to the ocean. when we're talking about we don't have water. So we shouldn't be letting anything go out to the ocean. So I don't care who pays to clean it. We shouldn't be right? And so I really don't have a question, just trying to understand why would that be a benefit to us if we're not using it, right? If we're gonna let it go out to the ocean, then it's a waste, even though someone's paying for it. And so I know you can't let it go out without being treated. So what is the benefit for us to do it and let it go out? And then what is the benefit for us to ask someone else to pay for it if it belongs to us and we had to forward that money back to the people that it used to belong to? The dirty water used to belong to.
So there's no benefit to anyone other than the city of Salinas to let it go out the ocean, into the ocean. The benefit of the city of Salinas is to lower their pond level to be in compliance with their permit. The only reason that we're bringing this up versus just relying on the water code is I know it's a very sensitive issue politically with the city and the valley and everything. So instead of just relying on the water code and saying this is what we're doing, I'm bringing it to the JPA to have that discussion. You have another thought, Jim? Sorry.
Well, I don't want to make it more complicated, but we've had agreements in the past relative to handling the pond water, and those have all expired. We've been trying to develop a long-term agreement, been unable to do it. In this circumstance, as your advocate, as your zealous advocate, Salinas is coming to you and needs to get rid of water. And they shouldn't, frankly, in my mind, put any conditions on us if they're going to do that. We're treating the water for them. They should pay that cost. And there may be other circumstances in the future where that water is available and they don't have to get rid of it and it becomes a source water under the agreement. And the agreement specifies how that's dealt with as a source water. But right now, talking about a discharge situation.
So we'll go to Director Church and then Director Coletti, then back to Director Rocha.
Yeah, a couple questions. One, my first one's really about a staff report. I want to make sure I understand. Talks about a meeting scheduled on July 1st in which Water Resources Agency and Monterey One Water were discussing this. It was determined that Water Resources Agency did not need the extra water. But the next paragraph says if Monterey County Water Resources declined the need. So I guess one says decline and then the next one says if they decline. So I guess I want a little clarification of what that means, where we're really at.
So July 1 was a Zoom and it was a verbal, yeah, we don't need it, Paul. And this is Ara speaking, we don't need it. And so we would put something in writing, say, right of first refusal, we don't need it, you can use it for recycling. The second part is we obviously need that in writing before we do anything. And Mayor Oglesby is correct, per the water code, we should just be able to use it, but we have an existing agreement with Water Resources Agency that we want to honor. And so the if is if and when we receive something in writing.
Okay, so you had a verbal but not a written, is what you're saying.
And I talked to Ara about that this morning again.
Okay.
And he reiterated the same thing.
Okay.
But under this circumstance, if Water Resources was going to take that water, it would be them that was, if we accepted Salinas's terms, it would be Water Resource Agency that would pay for that water, not us,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
But yeah.
And maybe I missed that in here in the discussion, but the agreement we're looking at would last for how long?
The city asked for 90 days?
They didn't specify, but the last time it was 60 days. So it could
We're
be.
talking about a short-term agreement,
Yes,
very
we are.
short-term agreement. But this is something that's popped up quite a few times. So it seems like there needs to be some kind of long-term solution instead of just popping this up every few board meetings with an issue here. So, I mean, the first I've heard of it really, and I haven't talked to Water Resources Agency, and I understand what the need is right now, but I feel like I need to get a little more information for a long-term understanding. I think we need to move somewhere around where we're dealing with this on a not a case-by-case basis, but dealing with a permanent solution when this arises. And that's, I think is the most pressing thing right now before us. I don't know. I'm sure Salinas thinks they need to get rid of water is pretty pressing, but I, I really think, we have to really look at the long term on solving this.
Thank you, Director Church. Director Coletti?
Thank you, Chair. Well, it seems to me we're providing a service to Salinas. And that service is going to come with a cost. It's really not up to them to determine what the cost should be based on what the ultimate use of the water would end up being. So it seems to be a pretty fundamental question. We're providing the service and we would expect compensation for that service. So I understand there's, everyone's trying to play nice. It is a thorny subject, the whole source water issue. But if we were just to say, let us, and to Director Church's point, I think this does need to all be pointing towards a long-term agreement. But for this, it just seems to me we ask them to pay for the service, and it needs to be treated, and they need to get rid of it, right? So, and one kind of tangential question on Pond 3, is there any metering for the water that goes into Pond 3? Do they know what water is what, so that there isn't any question of, whose claim exists on whatever waters from that pond?
My understanding is yes. I'm not sure how many meters they have out there. Do you know, Jose or Mike? Because there's multiple sources coming in. There's obviously the industrial wash water that comes in, but there's also the storm water that enters the ponds.
Yeah, so they can meter how much industrial water they have, and then we can meter if there's stormwater in there as well.
Okay.
Well,
and then there's the assumption of evaporation and percolation losses throughout the ponds, et cetera, et cetera.
what's your feeling as far as if we were just to say, hey, you're gonna have to pay the service to take the water off your hands? Would that jeopardize some long-term agreement?
I don't think it would jeopardize a long-term agreement. It's something we're still working towards. Obviously, the city has had some staff turnover. I'm actually meeting with city manager on Monday to reinitiate these discussions. They also the city has a way out if they don't like whatever the board says with what the regional board has said. Now, obviously, what the regional board has said is, hey, you need to make sure these things work. So I know the city is undergoing contracts to dredge some of the ponds and make sure that the percolation is a higher rate than it currently is, and will hopefully meet those requirements. But I don't know the details of that, frankly. So I don't think, to answer your question more directly, I don't think it'll jeopardize a long-term or short-term agreement. We received the request. It's unusual this time, so we brought it to the board.
So we'll go to Director Rocha and then to Director.
Thank you. Can you talk a little bit about the short-term agreement with Pond 3 that you have had with the city during dry years and how that plays into this? Contextually speaking.
Yeah, I don't know that we've had one during dry years, have we?
Yeah, in 2022.
So,
Oh, the old one.
Yeah.
I'm not just thinking about the recent ones. Yeah, with the rains and stuff. Sorry, Director. Can you
so
talk to that?
just so I could better clarify where my question's coming from. It's to kind of get to the question of Director Coletti about what this decision today the impacts it'll have on a long-term or short-term agreement. It's my understanding. So just to be clear, I mean, the city's coming to Monterey Wind Water in a position of, in all honesty, vulnerability. And like, we're not really, the bargaining power really is on your end in this conversation completely, if we're being frank, right? Recognizing also that when we've had dry years, it's my understanding Monterey Wind Water has come to the city of Salinas for water for your other water projects. Is that correct?
No, actually, the one I think you're referencing is we got water for Water Resources Agency.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a short-term one in 2022. You're talking about the 21, 22. So during those 4 drought years, unfortunately, we didn't optimize it, but we did get to some resolution where we were able to take some water and we got it to CSIP. So it didn't go to pure water, it went to CSIP. The other 3 times the city has requested our assistance, I didn't take it to the board. I just authorized it myself. And it was during those high rain events and or flooding. But the dry season one that you just referenced was during the droughts. And it wasn't for Pure Water Monterey. It wasn't for this benefit. It was truly to get water to the growers who were in desperate need of it during, if we all remember 2022 and how bad it was.
And what was that like? Did you end up paying the city a fee, or what did that look like?
No, that was, Mike, if you remember the terms, it was the Water Resources Agency paid the primary and secondary and the treatment costs that the city incurred on their pond treatment.
That's correct.
Did you ever, this is just so I have a better understanding of the whole picture. Was the wash water in our pond ever used as a source, water for the Pure Water Monterey long-term, plan? Was it ever considered a source water for the Pure Water Monterey plan?
Yeah, so when we first established the water recycling agreement with the Water Resources Agency, the concept was the new source waters, industrial wash water, Blanco drain, reclamation ditch would all go into the same bucket and then be distributed to Pure Water Monterey and to CSIP. So that was the initial thought. Water Resources Agency never executed, I shouldn't say executed, they pulled out of the agreement. So therefore, in doing so, it separated those source water rights where, and I keep pointing at you, Supervisor Church, sorry, where Water Resources Agency has the rights to the industrial wash water, Monterey One Water has Blanco drain and rec ditch. So although it was anticipated, it never came into reality.
Okay.
And just to clarify, they didn't pull out of the agreement. There was a condition precedent
Right.
in the agreement that wasn't satisfied. They elected to not extend the period to satisfy the condition precedent, which kicked it into other provisions. And as Paul said, under those provisions, they have the first right to the industrial wastewater, and Monterey One gets Blanco and rec water.
Yeah.
I would love to hear from the Public Works Director when it's his allowed time to speak. What I'll just say in my kind of closing comments here is before I got on this board, I heard a lot of like unfounded comments that people would say that Monterey One Water was using Salinas' water to do other stuff, and the whole narrative of they're taking our water. I continuously heard that, and I think that sometimes partnerships that allow for both parties to feel that they're being represented and heard may help to dispel some of those myths and narratives. Obviously, I understand, depending on the way you look at it, Monterey One Water is going to provide a service to the city by taking the water. But I think there's something to be said about the potential for split costs with this, since this water could be used by other agencies or other entities for that matter. And so I think that I would just ask the board to have some consideration about what that would look like. I certainly support the Pure Water Monterey project. I want to see it be successful. While also trying to see how the city of Salinas can be supported in these negotiations, potentially through split costs. So, but I understand the sentiments of the board as well, but I do want to advocate for the potential for split costs or some sort of discussion around that. And also, I do think we need to look at a more long-term approach to it as well. I know our new city manager is definitely interested in having these conversations, and I think you both will work well together.
So other directors? All right, before we go out to the public, yeah.
Sorry.
Director Cronin.
That's okay, real fast. Been sitting here listening to this for quite some time, and it seems to boil down to dollars and cents. The city has water they need to get rid of. Charging the agency to get rid of it doesn't seem to make any sense whatsoever. None whatsoever. You've got a problem. You got a toilet that's backing up, you got a problem. Treatment costs are another facet of it, depending on where it would go. I'm not sure this is enough water to really throw Pure Water Monterey into a tailspin, budget wise. So I would advocate the city gives us the water for free. And then we charge whatever the rate is for treatment to use it in Pure Water Monterey, if we have capacity to push that water into the ground. That meets Ron and Tom, the sustainability stuff. We're not throwing water away. We're not sending out the outfall line. I don't think we're going to go bankrupt. I think we're trying to help the city out a little bit. We've been a lot of contentious stuff last couple of months with the city, but let's put all that behind us and go forward and go, dude, You need to get rid of water, we'll take your water for free. We'll deal with the treatment costs internally and use it internally. I think that, to me, is a cooperative solution. It's not optimal, but it's better than just letting it go down a river. So that's what I gotta say.
Okay, thank you.
Just to clarify can you talk about the treatment costs? So, you're advocating for Monterey One Water to pay the treatment costs?
Yes, Monterey would
Thank
take
you.
the primary, secondary, whatever they need to push it over to Pure Water Monterey.
Right.
But we would not reimburse the city in any way, shape, or form for the water itself.
I appreciate any way we could find some common ground on this. I certainly appreciate you extending the olive branch.
Okay. Director Habino.
Well, one quick comment is, yeah, I think that, in this situation is a sounds like a pretty temporary and urgent situation. But I think, moving forward, it's all about, the agreement and how it's worded. And when it comes to time to another series of drought years, that's when all the rules change in terms of, wants and needs and pricing and all that. So that's all I have to say. Thanks.
So it seems to me in this discussion, the biggest sticking point is the Salinas request to put a positive dollar value on the wastewater that we would then have to turn around and charge to one of our customers. Our general manager has indicated that, for a short-term agreement, maybe there would be some contingency funds within Pure Water Monterey that could cover that. But let me point out a couple of things. Number one, that would set an interesting sort of precedent, because if Salinas is getting paid something for the wastewater it sends to be treated by Monterey One Water, well, then why shouldn't Marina Coast Water District get paid something for the water it sends to? And now by pay, obviously we all as members get a benefit to have our wastewater treated, and our customers pay for that basic treatment. But what I am saying is maybe Marina Coast gets some kind of discount akin to what Salinas would be getting, but then couldn't PG ask for the same thing and Monterey ask for the same thing? Do we want to open that? I mean, it sounds a little bit like a Pandora's box, but still, I'm willing to talk to Pandora. If we think about what we do with our treated water, it only goes 3 places, a little bit evaporates, okay? But it either goes into the ocean. Well, who's our customer and beneficiary there when it goes into the ocean? Fish, and anybody who surfs or swims or walks along the ocean and doesn't want to get sick by doing so. Okay, so it's not exactly our customer base, pretty generic, tourist benefit, so forth. All right, big deal. All right, who benefits from CSIP? Oh, what is it, 12, 15,000 acres of agricultural producers, okay? Directly benefit from it. Secondarily, maybe you could argue that Castroville Community Services District benefits a little bit from it because the use of CSIP reduces the amount of seawater intrusion a bit. Maybe you could argue that Marina Coast benefits a little bit similarly, right? And then who benefits for Pure Water Monterey? Well, Cal-Am customers. If we're going to start basically putting a positive value on the wastewater that we each send, then we're going to have to work through some kind of complicated economic negotiations over where's that revenue stream or that discount going to come from. And then we're going to be looking at 3 parties, the ocean, CSIP, and Pure Water Monterey. Paul, do you think we could get that sort of discussion done by next month?
I'm hoping we get done with this board meeting by next month.
Right. Right. So none of those concepts, I think, are going to float well for a short-term agreement here for Salinas. All right. So that's my input for your mental cogitation at some point in the future. Mayor.
Yeah,
Full
if
speed, sir.
you're done, Chair, if you're taking a break for right now.
Yes, I'm taking a break and we'll go to the
No, I
public
said
and
it
finish your.
I said it respectfully.
You
I
did.
don't want to interrupt you.
No, but you could have
Uh,
said shut up and I
no,
would have.
Of course not. No, I wanted to jump in just to say that, the part that you were talking about, all of these sanitation districts putting in their water and trying to get something back from it, we're not going to agree to that. That doesn't make sense. But the only ones talking about, Salinas, dictating what happens to the treated water is Salinas. I haven't heard no one else on this board say that. But I did hear, I guess, a compromise somewhere in the middle where they have water they have to get rid of. They should send it to us for free, and that'll be the end of it. What we do with it afterwards is what we do with it. We have to treat it, and it goes to wherever it needs to go to. If people refusing it, they refuse it. But after we treat it, we do what we want with it. And I think that's as fair as compromise as we can ever get, right? As if you don't need the water, we'll treat it, and then we'll do whatever we want to do with it. Because otherwise it's going back to you pay for the treatment and we still do what we want with it. I mean, we can't go and let it go out to the ocean at this time of the year, right? We understand what happens during the wet months. It has to go out because there's no place to put it. So trying to put that frame, that model on these summer month overflows, right? For lack of a better word, this need during the summer months, well, then we have the opportunity to put it to use it as we deem fit. And so we can keep going around, but I did think I heard a middle way where they can send it to us for free. We treat it and then we use it as we deem fit.
Mayor Carbone. Thank you, Mayor Oglesby.
Yes, so I think it's crazy to let it just go out to the ocean. I think what I'm hearing about, receiving the water and doing what we see fit here on the spore, I could hear Mayor Oglesby, but I know that all of the communities that we all are threatened by seawater intrusion, and that it seems the best thing to do would be to put it in our aquifers to protect everybody's interest instead of, that's how I feel about it. It's would protect everybody. Everybody's threatened with seawater intrusion. And I think that would be like, to me, the number one thing to protecting our water sources and, by putting in that barrier to keep that seawater from coming into our water sources. So just a comment.
Director Cronin.
So we've been beating this thing for quite some time. I'm going to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion that for the next 90 days, we take the water from the city of Salinas at no charge from the city to us, and then the agency treats it and deals with it as they choose. I'm sure there's a ton more stuff that needs to go in there. But basically, we accept the water from the city of Salinas for the next 90 days at no charge. So the city does not charge us. Is that clear? And then how the agency decides to disperse that water once it comes in our gate is up to us.
Just for clarification, as part of that motion, would you be okay with the city of Salinas not paying the interruptible treatment fee for primary and secondary wastewater treatment?
I believe, yes, that's what I
Okay.
talked about, yes.
It-
But go ahead.
May I ask, in reference to that, what if there's not a need for the water and it does go out the outfall? I assume that Salinas would pay that interruptible rate. So as someone mentioned, the water goes three places:
Right.
the outfall, CSIP, or Pure Water Monterey. So those are your three revenue sources to pay for primary and secondary treatment.
Is there room for that water in Pure Water Monterey?
There is a portion of it. I
It all
can't commit
balances
to
out.
90 days exactly where it's going to go,
Right.
but just to have three revenue sources, because I don't want to encumber anyone that isn't benefiting from the water for
Right.
that additional charge.
That's what I'm after, yes.
And
Does that make sense?
I'll
Director?
read what the city of Salinas requested terms were and see if it's consistent with what you're saying.
Okay.
So the city is saying if the water from the IWTF is treated by Monterey One Water and disposed through the Monterey One Water outfall, the city of Salinas would pay the interruptible rate for primary and secondary wastewater treatment. The city of Salinas is also requesting if another party were to use the water, the city would expect the other party to pay the interruptible treatment fee for primary, secondary wastewater treatment. And you agreement with that? And the last one is, since the city is requesting to get rid of the water, there would be no other rates or fees incurred. Okay, so if we're on board with that as the,
Is that,
No.
what are we missing, Mr. Mayor Oglesby, please?
If, who,
Go ahead.
through the chair,
Yes, go ahead.
who are we expecting to use it once it's treated? That's my
So
question.
what I'm understanding from Mr. Shudo is that there's not a guaranteed place for 90 days worth of water. So my proposal was to take it from Salinas for, at no fee. Right? They're not going to charge us to dispose of the water. That was one of the original parts.
No, you, through the chair, it just, you keep saying it in a way I'm not understanding. You keep saying they're charging us. It should be we won't charge them.
Okay, but they wanted us to buy the water from them originally. Am I correct, Anthony?
I'll clarify. Is that the other fee?
Way back in the beginning of this whole discussion that there was a fee for us to take the water. So
Correct.
I'm saying push that fee aside, we take the water for
So-
free. If we use the water for Pure Water Monterey pays the treatment charges and puts the water in the ground. If Pure Water Monterey can't accept it for whatever reason, then the city will pay the charges to treat it and we send it to the outfall, I guess. I don't want to, but that's,
Right. No, it's just, remember, the way you said it's two things, right? And then it turned into three things.
I'm sorry.
And well, no, it was
That's
that was a
okay.
wish by Salinas to turn it into three.
My wife will tell you I talk in
We
threes.
want to have a clear motion, so let's ask staff, which would have to execute the motion. Can you articulate for us what you believe the motion?
I'll try to repeat what Bill said, but I also want to state an email we received from the city that states, amongst other things, if someone, meaning Water Resources or us, needs the water, they pay for the treatment of the water, which includes the city's cost of treatment. So it wasn't exactly reflected in the staff report. What the city was requesting is someone else pay for the primary and secondary treatment, but also pay the city for the water, for your treatment. And what I heard from the motion that I believe is going to be on the table soon on the
Yeah.
floor is that we accept Monterey One Water, accept industrial wastewater through Pond 3 from the city of Salinas for the next 90 days. The water Monterey One determines where that water will be used with a caveat of asking Water Resources Agency on the first right of refusal. If the water is used by Water Resources Agency or Pure Water Monterey, those entities pay for the primary and secondary costs. If there's no need to use the water and it does go out the outfall, the city of Salinas pays for the primary and secondary costs, and there's no additional payment to the city for the city's cost of treatment of this water.
So just so I'm clear, because the request from the city included two things, the treatment fee and also the other, can you clarify what the other fee that the city of Salinas was requesting was?
So it was the primary and secondary, and the primary and secondary treatment plant, ours, that's the interruptible rate. They also requested that the user pay for the treatment of water, which includes the city's cost of treatment, which I took to mean the cost for your industrial ponds. And that used to be, I thought it was like $436 an acre foot. Do you remember what it was?
Around 800.
$800 an acre foot?
It's what it was in the past, but when we did the agreement in 2022, it was 426.
426. So that's an additional demand in this by the city
So
that I
was,
think we are not including in that motion.
I didn't know about that.
so the, so as part of this, can you clarify to me what part of this is meeting the compromise? Because the city was gonna have to pay the interruptible treatment fee in addition to the city's cost of treatment, correct?
Correct.
So
And the
it'd have
city
to
is
be
being
two.
paid, sorry.
So the city would have to pay two under, without this compromise agreement, the city would have to pay two. As part of this compromise agreement, the city's only pay one of the treatment costs and not the interruptible treatment fee.
The city will not pay the interruptible treatment fee when the water is used by either Water Resources Agency or Pure Water Monterey.
Or another
If there's
party.
not a need and it goes out the outfall, then the city would end up paying for the interruptible fee.
And that is consistent with the requests outlined in this report.
Correct.
Okay, I,
The one caveat was that
Mhm.
city's treatment cost. Which
So,
you would end up paying regardless because your dischargers pay you for that.
but, with absent this, compromise, the city would have also had to pay the interruptible treatment fee for primary and secondary wastewater treatment if another party were to use it.
Correct.
And under this, compromise, the city's not gonna have to pay the interruptible treatment costs if another party uses it.
Correct.
Understood. I will second the motion. Thank you. I
okay, so
appreciate
we
that.
have a second.
Thank you.
Can, see if I have a
Richard
friendly
Burge.
amendment, please, sorry.
Go ahead.
Yes, can, we add in here that we'll proceed with, negotiations for a long-term solution with the relevant entities?
Absolutely.
So we don't, I don't want to go around this merry-go-round again.
Again and again and again. Right.
I agree.
Maker of the motion, seconder? Yes. Okay, then we go to Vice Chair Williamson.
This conversation's really interesting. It I think has a lot of room for interpretation and trying to digest it. I mean, I think the amount of back and forth that we've done to try to understand it. I can't support the motion. I appreciate the amendment. And I think that's where the conversation should focus on. In fact, I think by leaving the conversation there, I think almost forces both parties to come to the table and come up with a long-term agreement, as opposed to trying to jerry-rig something that may not fully be of best benefit to this agency, particularly because of the previous item that we talked about. There's going to be a cost borne associated with that. So I'd say let's let the long-term negotiation happen, and maybe there could be a compromise that comes out of those discussions that we can have a reasonable agreement with the city of Salinas. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting the motion.
Director Rocha.
At some point, if we could allow the Public Works Director to speak, but I just want to express my appreciation to you, Director. This obviously one can choose whatever way they're going to go, but I am seeing the effort you're putting to extend the olive branch, and I just want to acknowledge that I really appreciate that. And I want to work towards a long-term agreement as well.
Yep, we'll go to the public in just a moment, but I do have a couple of questions. How much per acre foot is the interruptible treatment rate for water taken from Pond 3?
Currently, it's about $136 an acre foot. And I'm looking around just for confirmation. It is going to go up, or is proposed to go up. We're meeting with the city and the Water Resources Agency in the coming weeks. It will come to Recycled Water Committee and then come back to our board in August to increase that.
The 420.
What?
Your numbers are off.
Way off.
To 420, and am I correct in assuming?
Well, our interruptible rate is 420.
It will go to 420.
No, what's it right now?
136.
Okay, it is 136. Thank you.
So am I correct in assuming that the justification for that increase has to do with an increase in our treatment costs for water taken from Pond 3?
It is an increase in our treatment costs, as well as making sure we capture all the costs inherent in the treatment. It is an incredibly complex spreadsheet
Right.
identifying all the costs. So obviously,
Allison's ready to have a heart attack.
depends how long it takes. 2 seconds, yes.
About 2.5 years ago, we developed the first version of the Pond 3 interruptible rate. Bob Holden was, and I worked together on that. And that's where that 136. In that estimate, we did not include the full cost of treatment that now we know about because we've taken better water quality data. And that cost includes building up a capital reserve program for replacing the Pond 3 pump station equipment. So, and then also our increased just cost of doing business and cost of chemicals, cost of electricity is a big part of that cost also. So PG&E rates have gone up. We didn't include capital reserve program. And so that's why it's so much significantly higher in the proposed interruptible rate for Pond 3.
And when, if we do a 90-day agreement starting very soon, when during that period of time is this rate going to go up to 420 something?
Well, we're going to take it to our August board meeting. So would it happen? Are you giving a grace period after that, or is it going to be the day after the board meeting?
Yeah, Jim Gilpin can speak on this, but we need an approval by the board for updating the interruptible rate. Right now, like for today and through whenever you do make an approval, we would charge the existing adopted interruptible rate.
Yeah, but it would go to the August 26th board meeting. Would it be effective August 27th, or is there a grace period after that where there's then effective September 1 or something?
In the past, it's been effective immediately following the approval. And Jim can speak.
Past, it's been effective immediately. I mean, it's
Okay.
up to the board as to when it wants it to go into effect. But board could delay the effective date. In the past, it's gone into effect immediately after approval.
So I just want to make sure I clearly understand the ramifications of the motion. If the motion fails and Salinas wishes to have this water treated and the work they're doing with the other agencies that limit them to the amount of freeboard they can have and so forth, they would have to pay $135 an acre foot for that treatment. Is that correct?
If they send it to us, yes.
They send it to us, all right? And also, Mr. Gilpin has said that we could do whatever the heck we want with it at that point, legally, at any rate. Not necessarily politically, but legally.
Yes.
Okay. And if the motion passes, I do have to express one concern, which is, would we be setting a precedent that says that industrial wastewater received at Pond 3 is worth $135 an acre foot to Pure Water Monterey and CSIP? In other words, wouldn't we be doing what
I don't
in a
think that's a
lengthy
precedent, but I'll let
Set a precedent, but you're effective. I mean, you've got to look at the rate chain, right? If the end user is paying all of the rate cost, you're increasing their rate by
135
and then
acre
maybe
foot,
in another
right.
month by 4 whatever.
420.
420. So the cost of either CSIP water or pure Monterey water will go up by that amount. Now,
And is there a contingency? So since CSIP has right of first refusal to this water, and we have to charge them an additional $135 an acre foot, can we just turn around and do that to them? Or does that require a 1-year budget adoption and a modification of an agreement with County Water Resources Agency and yada, yada, yada?
No, so I'll go back to 22 when we did it. The water was needed, so they willingly paid for it. In fact, they wanted it, and they found the money within their budget to accommodate the additional costs. We would structure it very similarly to that.
I'll also note that the 135 that you keep saying, there's fixed costs associated with that too. So it's just not 135. an
There's
acre
two
foot.
components, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, whatever I just was using that as a notional number to make sure we understand the implications and whether or not it establishes some sort of precedent.
I don't think it establishes a precedent. I think it's truly a business
it's a
case
business
decision
decision.
for both Pure Water and or CSIP. And I wanted to also be very clear. Mike talked about the water currently going to the rapid infiltration basin, which all that does is percolate or evaporate. So that is, as we've said, we should be using this water. That's not being used. That's just going to the environment.
Just want to be clear that we would be recognizing the value of a wastewater stream that previously had negative value. And by negative value, I mean, in order to get rid of it, CSIP's paying $135 an acre foot. Excuse me, the city of Salinas is paying $135 an acre foot to get rid of it.
Yeah, I would not characterize it that way.
How would you characterize
We're
it?
reaching agreement as to potentially paying for source water that we need, which we currently recognize in connection with the other type of source water,
Right.
as distinguished from wastewater, which is sewer water. So that's a slippery slope. I don't think we want to head towards.
Well, I'd say we'd be,
Well, because the way
acknowledging
recycled
it.
water always works is, your flusher is paying the primary and secondary cost, and then the recycled user is paying the advanced water treatment cost because it's a
right.
fair apportionment of those costs.
Currently, our two recycled water customers have been getting the necessary water for their advanced treatment processes for how much? Nothing.
Yeah, well, except for Blanco Drain and Reclamation Dish. Yes.
Basically nothing.
Yeah, the
So it's-
wastewater treatment is the primary and secondary, the cost is borne by all of us and all of our constituents.
All right,
What
so
about the advanced
Mayor,
treatment?
okay,
That's,
Director Cronin.
So going back to Mr. Church, I think we need to bring it back down into a smaller picture. We're talking 90 days. City of Salinas is in trouble, okay? If they go to the regional board, the way I understand it, the regional board can really put a crimp on what they do in the city. That's not good. City's a major driver of the economic whole world around here. So we're talking 90 days. Mr. Church and a lot of other people want a long-term agreement, which I think is absolutely necessary. Whether it has a dollar value to it or doesn't have a dollar value to it, or has a negotiated dollar value to it. I'm trying to get Salinas out of a hard spot. That's all I'm trying to do. And I think we're losing perspective on whether it's worth $50 or $100 or $2,300 or $136, or when it goes up in August to 400, so that's another $300. We're not talking to King's Ransom. We're not talking millions and millions of dollars here. I'm trying to get Salinas out of a problem. That's what I'm trying to do. And I agree with every single person on this board, and I don't think I'm wrong, that we need to have this nailed down somehow to where we don't spend close to 2 hours, I think, somewhere around an hour and a half.
feels like it.
Yeah, I'm sweating, that's all I know. It seems like it's taking a long time to get this done, and it's a 90-day agreement. And
Yes.
I think we can just call the question and move it forward.
Director Oglesby.
It was, I'm sorry, but it was said that, we're doing Salinas a solid, right? And
Yes.
we're trying to help them, but it don't seem like they're trying to help themselves. Because it all comes back to, if someone uses that water, we don't want to have paid to have it clean.
Right.
Right? And so I understood that from the start, and I understood what you said, and that's what I thought I was agreeing to, is we will accept it and clean it for free.
Right.
And then we do what we need to do with it.
Yes, that's exactly. it.
And then somehow it bogged down into, well, how much does it cost to clean and all of that stuff? That's
That-
not a concern we should be having, because we should not put a value on cleaning that water. That's our process. If you say there's money in the bank to do that, we're the board, so we can find the money.
Right.
But that's where we should just be centered at. The solid is, give us the water for free,
Mhm.
we'll clean it, and then we'll do what we want with it.
That's
It
kind of
can't
where
be
I'm
both
at.
ways. It can't be you tell us what we can't do with it.
No, I don't want the city.
Yeah, if they, because what I'm getting to is, we don't want to say, you pay us to clean it and then we'll flush it out.
Right.
If you guys can do that.
Mhm.
But if we want to keep it, then the value to them is, well, then they don't have to pay to clean it.
Mhm.
At this station, at the pond station, they have to clean, right? So I got that distinction. That's, we just got bogged down into how much it costs. We shouldn't be talking about how much it costs, just.
No, I don't want to get
Yeah.
caught up in that. I just want to get the water out of Salinas
That's right.
and into the treatment plant and then deal with it from there.
Vice Chair Williamson.
The past invoices that we've provided to Salinas during the storm season, how did those work? Did Salinas pay for the recycling of the water?
The water in those instances, well, with the exception of 2022, so in the three times that we took it during storms, it was not recycled. So Salinas did pay the interruptible rate for primary and secondary treatment.
Okay.
Oh, and the fixed cost, yeah. Thanks for.
All right, if there are no other board,
Sorry, I just want to make a final point. I don't see I guess I don't see where the problem is. I can see if Salinas was strapped and it was causing them a problem where they weren't going to be able to pay for the cost of letting the water go, but they have to let it go. And the alternative is that it just goes out into the ocean. So I would hate for us to set a precedent in this space with not allowing the negotiations to happen for a long-term agreement. So that's why I'm wanting to hold off. I'm totally willing to have that compromise and have that discussion, but I think we need to be able to focus the priority on the long-term agreement. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
All right. To the chair, is the motion the same or if it's different? Because I want to make sure.
Motion, I believe, is the same.
Jai, do you have the motion? Can you repeat it?
Because it's been
Is it in
beat
there or
up-
not?
It's been beat around so long, nobody knows what it is anymore.
I think I can probably repeat it.
And Anthony, I think. got a pretty good-
So
pretty good line on
my
it.
understanding of the motion is depending on which of our three output customers, the ocean, CSIP or Pure Monterey uses that water. If CSIP uses the water, CSIP pays the interruptible rate treatment costs
For primary and secondary.
for primary and secondary. Same thing for Pure Water Monterey. But if it goes to the ocean, because neither of those two recycled water customers have the capacity to take it, then the city of Salinas will receive the bill. And I believe the seconder of the motion is shaking his head yes, that he agrees that that's the terms offered.
And the long-term agreement, please. That goes with the
And,
motion.
yes, and we are all committing, all of us, to work on a long-term agreement to try and settle these issues out a little better. Director Clay.
Thank you. Paul, who pays the cost to get the water on site?
To Salinas' site or to ours?
Our site.
From where we take it.
So
from
the pump
pumps we-
station, that is our costs that are built into that $136 or $420 per acre foot, the power and O&M to get it here.
Okay.
As Mike
So
keeps bringing up.
that's all part of that structure.
Correct.
Okay, can we go out to the public?
Please. Let's listen to.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment on this?
And David is now, it looks like a panelist.
Okay.
And David Jacobs is the public works
Yes,
director.
go
of the
ahead,
city
Mr.
of Salinas.
Jacobs.
Yeah, so I'm David Jacobs, Director of Public Works for the City of Salinas.
Welcome, thank you.
Basically, as a city, we're looking out for our ratepayers as well. The industrial users are our ratepayers, and we try to save them as much money as possible when we deal with their wastewater. What you propose now, I think, is fair for everybody involved, and hopefully the motion on the floor passes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jacobs. Any other members of the public? Anyone in the room? Anyone else on Zoom? Raise your Zoom hand. If not, we'll bring it back to the board. And why don't we just do a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Please show any abstentions. Okay, please show 9 ayes, 1 no. Thank you very much. Good discussion. Take a deep breath. Informational items, please. Agenda item 10A, Pure Water Monterey update. Let's hear the good news.
Thank you. Thank you both.
Good evening, Chair Moore, Board. Pure Water Monterey, the water production continues to be a success. If you recall, the end of June is the end of the accounting year. So each year the water purchase agreement says you have to recharge 3,500. That was done actually by the end of May. And so Pure Water Monterey actually banked 319 extra acre feet into Operation Reserve. So again, that's 4 years in a row. Congratulations, Monterey One Water. As far as the expansion goes, real quick, everything is on time and still on budget. What we have to look forward to is an AWPF expansion. We expect the microfiltration and reverse osmosis units to show up in August. So we have the UV units. Those other big process units are going to show up. The contractor will start plugging those in. There are some minor shutdowns occurring where they're doing chem injection piping, new tanks, et cetera, in anticipation of the additional process units. Out at the well fields, they finished the first deep well. So that is in the ground, constructed. Next week, they're going to start testing it. So that's where we want it to be also. And we hope to see in August, the pipeline construction, and this will be open trench construction, the pipeline from the new eastern well field up to the Black Horse Reservoir. So we'll be able to see that happening in August, hopefully. And it won't take them that long. They'll get that done in less than 2 months. So those are some of the upcoming highlights. With that, I'd hand it back to the board for questions.
Any questions, directors? Mr. Lindell, thank you very much for excellent work. We move on to fiscal year grants and funding update. 10B.
Good evening, members of the board. My name is Johanna Vargas. I'm the Grants and Contracts Administrator, and I'm here to provide a grants update for fiscal year 23-24. It is the responsibility of the legislative team to, 1, research and identify funding opportunities, 2, write and submit the grant applications, and 3, if the grant is awarded, to manage the grant process, the award, and the post-award funding requirements. During the last fiscal year, our team advocated for the inclusion of the Monterey Energy Renewable Project into the final Climate Action Plan. This was a requirement for the EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. We submitted an application to the EPA in the amount of $49.9 million. We also participated and interviewed different consultants to get a better understanding of the direct pay under the Inflation Reduction Act, as this will help us access clean energy tax credits. We released the request for proposals, and we award that contract during the last board meeting. We also, to provide guidance on the requirements for the state and federal grants, we finalized the first draft of the agency's grant policy and procedure manual. During this past fiscal year, we submitted 3 grant applications. They're listed in your agenda report. And we submitted an earmark, everything totally $63 million. Sadly, last week, we did receive a notice from the EPA that we did not get the award for the $49 million EPA grant. Only one project in California got funds for that, and it's a big municipality out of LA County. We are currently working with the EPA, finalizing the agreement for the $1.2 million earmark. We hope to finalize that probably next month or early September. Right now, we're managing 5 state grants, 4 federal grants, plus the WIFIA loan, a total of $124 million. When we talk about managing, that includes quarterly reporting, semi-annual reporting, annual financial reporting. We file the disbursements, disadvantaged business reporting, contract compliance, and any other requirements included in the grant agreement. We also manage any FEMA disbursements like the ones we have during the storms last year, and any other financing or funding available. As an example, the low-income program for our customers. The recommended action is just that the Board of Directors receive the 2023-24 grants and funding update. And I'm here to answer any questions.
Any questions, directors? Director Rocha.
Random question. Was it the Metropolitan Water District that got the EPA grant?
No.
No.
I was wondering.
It was a transportation project.
What was really, what was it?
South Coast Water Quality.
South Coast Air Quality,
Yeah.
Air Quality District. And what was interesting is, so one entity in California got an award, and it was for $500 million.
Close to 5, yeah.
So it certainly appeared as if EPA had the bucket and they're trying to get it out in large chunks.
Any other questions?
Yeah, questions. Thank you for the presentation and the report. One thing that would be helpful in the future, if possible, is maybe we can put some dates in here. So like if they were already awarded, the dates that they were awarded, and if we're pending, maybe when we could expect to hear. I'm not sure if there's usually a date that's provided for that. But that's just,
they do. Okay. I'll make sure to add that.
Thank you so much.
Since the public's unlikely have the time, many folks are unlikely to have the time to slog through our board packet here, which is an inch thick. Just for their edification, the dollar value of the 5 state grants and the dollar value of the 4 federal grants.
So for the ones that we're currently open and managing for the
Yes.
state grants, we have around 37 million that we're managing. And for the federal funds, including the Wi-Fi alone, which we manage, it's 87.5 million for a total of 124.
Good work. Thank you very much. If there are no other questions, we will move on to staff reports.
No staff reports from me. We'll kick it around.
I'm going to comment before Peter jumps in that, Johanna gave that report and Johanna's the contact for all of those things. And so I think it's just tremendous effort of our agency taking on a huge bite of the apple, and for something that many other agencies employ a staff of 7, 8, 10 people to do the same type of thing. So we do a good job.
Thank you. And she's very busy. Thank you for your efforts.
And this Wednesday, we will host a group of about 50 out at the regional treatment plant from the California Association of Sanitation Agencies. They're hosting their annual conference here in Monterey, and we look forward to having a large group of our industry peers come see our facility firsthand and learn about our water recycling and renewable energy efforts.
And actually that tour filled up, and then they wanted to bring a second bus.
Yes.
Which we had to politely decline. Peter, do you have anything? Okay. Frank?
Okay. So by now you guys have probably heard of that small computer outage that happened a week and a half ago. It actually did impact us. And I just want to give a shout out to the IT team with Ishmael, Henry, and especially Russell, who came in at, I think, 11 p.m. and worked throughout the night. And we had basically no downtime, even though we were impacted throughout our organization. So just want to show how hard our guys are working.
So you had quite a crowd working on it and they got struck, but they didn't strike out.
Well, and
Excellent.
it was pretty much Russell.
It was
and
just
he
Russell,
had to go terminal by terminal.
Yeah. So
and
he
do the
was
patches or the
here,
change,
Wow.
which
started
is
at
amazing to me.
at the treatment plant, middle of the night when he was finished there, came up here, middle of the night, finished his work, went back to the treatment plant to address some PCs that he couldn't have access to in the middle of the night. So
Does he have some sort of a special hacker alarm on his smartphone?
we do get alerts. Oh, he started getting all the alerts that all the machines were going down, and he just jumped right into action.
Good work.
Just lucky most at night, but anyway,
Yeah.
that's another story.
iPad.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Any other staff reports? All right.
Nope.
Seeing none, we'll move on to board member comments or reports. Any comments or reports? Director Rubino, Director Stefani, Director Coletti.
Just everybody, thank you very much for working
On it.
together to get through this mess tonight. I know, and it didn't make everybody happy, but we're through for 90 days.
And into long-term negotiations.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Director Coletti, Director Church, Vice Chair Williamson, Mayor Oglesby, Mayor Colonna, Director Rocha.
I just want to say thank you to everyone for your conversation, for your collaborative approach. This is my 6th month on the board. What was I appointed to? No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. No, but I really, really appreciate, the collaborative approach, the mutual respect on the board, and our ability to get through difficult conversations together, in the end of serving all the residents that we serve. So I just want to say thank you, and the city of Salinas thanks you all.
All right, thank you very much. And staff, thank you for your usual good work. We move on to agenda item 13, public comments on closed session items. Anyone wishing to address the board on matters appearing on the closed session may do so at this time. Please limit your comment to 3 minutes or less. And I will note that we will not be doing closed session item 14A because that was dealt with earlier in the meeting with the approval of the consent agenda. Anyone from the public? Seeing none in the room? Seeing no hands going up on the attendees? Gentlemen, you want a 5-minute, and ladies, do you want a 5-minute break? Okay, 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene in closed session. It is 9:11 and we are out of closed session. We are on agenda item 15 and there is nothing to announce based on the discussions in closed session, and I'll ask our attorney to confirm that.
Thank you, Chair Moore. There's no reportable action coming out of closed session.
All right, then we now stand adjourned till our next regular board meeting on August 26th, 2024.